Hi, folks. Welcome to this month's featured webinar on predictive hiring, sponsored by Protective Insurance. I'm Amit Jain from Roadz. Roadz is a platform which powers the Protective marketplace. Today, last count I checked, I think there were about 90 plus registrants, so great turnout. We're excited about it. Over the next 30 minutes, we will learn about how best-in-class fleets are using pre-employment behavioral assessments and predictive analytics to recruit and retain the safest drivers in the industry. Uh, Today, I want to just share a message from Harry. He basically asked me to say that Protective is thankful for all of you guys, both clients and broker partners, for joining this webinar. Protective likes to promote and provide ongoing value to all its clients as well as broker partners. So the marketplace is a great example of that. This Protective marketplace allows fleets to access innovative safety solutions, which usually are not offered by insurance carriers. The partnership that Protective has consummated with Roadz allows both clients and partners to access these solutions in a digitized format, and the clients are able to use the safety and risk management solutions to improve safety and compliance for their fleets. To kick it off, we're going to have Dylan Tinney from JOBehaviors, who's going to do the presentation, followed by a quick viewing of the solution card on the Protective marketplace. So without further ado, Dylan, would you please take it over?
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for joining. We're extremely excited to be here today and speaking with you. And we're extremely proud of the partnership with Predictive, as well as with the Roadz team, to make this solution available widely for everyone on this call. And with that, we'll jump right into it. So as a high level, why are we speaking with you today? Well, first off, we understand that safety is an incredibly important issue facing your industry right now, with the number of nuclear verdicts, as they're called, has skyrocketed over the past few years. And as you see right here, in the last 5 years, trucking companies have been mandated to pay out over 300 times payouts of over $1 million. And I can imagine that for many of the folks on this call, a verdict like that could mean the difference between staying on the road and going out of business. And so we are here to help avoid some of these accidents and things like that by helping our companies and our partners make consistently excellent hiring decisions. And so what we like to say is that if you hire for behavior and train for skill, that you can sidestep the lion's share of the headaches that come, especially in the first 6 months of a new hire's time with your company. We also know that the industry is facing some severe headwinds with what is called the driver shortage. And that many hiring decision makers are forced to make a decision between keeping capacity, but also vetting folks who are going to bring those safety and high performance behaviors to the table. And we're actually extremely excited to be speaking with you today, because what our solution can provide is actually a way to do both. By hiring better drivers who stick, you can actually solve the safety crisis and the driver shortage at the same time, while seeing performance increase. So to take you through at a very high level, what our system is. So JOBehaviors provides, as Amit mentioned, pre-employment screening assessments. And the way these work is they plug right into your existing recruiting process. So candidates, when they apply to your company, will be directed to complete an assessment. Happens online. They complete it in about 10 or 15 minutes. And their answers are rated and sorted and sent to you instantly, so that your recruiting forces are now armed with a lens into that each candidate's potential lifetime value relative to the approximate 500,000 drivers that JOBehaviors has assessed over the course since our inception. And lastly, once you have those great performers and new hires in your fleet, you get to track their performance across the safety, retention, and performance metrics and KPIs that we want to help you target and achieve while helping your business grow. So to help kind of put in your mind's eye understand like what is so different about these pre-screening assessments. I'm sure you're familiar with some that are in the market, but what's really completely unique about JOBehaviors is that we're the only pre-hire screening tool that uses predictive analytics and behavioral assessments. So if you're thinking about a traditional hiring process, like many fleets are using, it's time and labor intensive to review resumes, to conduct interviews. A lot of times folks might be brought in person, and that there's a lot of cost and investment that goes into that upfront. In traditional screening, a lot of the fleets that we talked to, they have very stringent minimum qualifications, things that are a number of reasons why an individual could be screened out of consideration. And ultimately, at the end of that traditional screening process, that individual's performance is still very uncertain. And it's actually not until they're hired, gone through training, and are out on the road that you actually find out if that hire is a good hire or opposite. Whereas predictive hiring is completely future forward. And the fact that the applicants are taking the assessment on their own time as the first step in the process actually allows them to do the heavy lifting of screening and sorting themselves. And that really frees up your recruiting efforts to do what recruiters do best, which is connect with individuals and sell them on why it's such a great idea for them to work for your company. So you take the emphasis off them on the screening aspect and just turn them loose to go after a wider range of candidates who are proven to statistically be higher likelihood to be top performers. And because the assessment is developed with a group of top drivers initially, the criteria is completely consistent and scientific. It's the same every time, whereas traditional recruiting efforts can sometimes leave a kind of wide delta between one interview style and the next. And so taking a look at a top line look at some of the recruiting benefits, feel free to peruse these, but I really want to hone in on number one here, which is that JOBehaviors can help you unlock a wider talent pool. And I want to take that head on because one of the biggest misconceptions about a hiring tool is that it's going to limit the number of candidates, the number of applicants that you might be able to consider. And we want to firmly say here that is not the case. And actually, as we'll talk about some of the case studies later in this presentation, you'll actually see that we have some partners who are actually widening their talent pool because they're not having to follow such stringent minimum qualifications, things like 3 years of service, what have you. And they're actually able to unlock new and consider confidently and consistently and objectively folks who might not look like their traditional candidate. And they're actually hiring, some of our folks are hiring new drivers right out of driving school who are performing just as good as their tenured best folks who've been with their fleets for 5 years or more. And so we're extremely excited, and we want to put that flag in the ground that this can actually help you widen your candidate pool instead of constricting it, because we know that candidate flow is so important to keeping capacity for all of your businesses. So at a very high level, again, we want to just keep hammering home retention, safety, performance. We have folks who are working with us who you'll see are reporting 2 to 3 times longer tenure from their drivers. Their safety, as we just hit on, or their safety outcomes from new hires are just as good as the industry's best, which is really important because we know from working with insurance partners that first 6 months on the job is, regardless of the driver's experience, is where they have the highest likelihood to have an accident as they're learning new routes, learning new protocols and things like that. So if you can hire folks who will get it up to speed and are performing at a very high level very quickly, that's where your fleets are going to see a dramatic drop in safety incidents. And lastly, what we're really excited to see is that folks who score really well on our test, not only do they drive more miles and they're eager to take more shifts and eager to get behind the wheel, but because of their behaviors, things like keeping an eye that the gas card is not a free money card, but actually they act as if that's an extension of their personal wallet, things like that. Their driving habits, they're not just trying to get to the next stop as fast as possible, but they're actually shifting smoothly and acting courteously and leaving with enough lead time so that they're not racing at the last second. Over the course of a year, that those little decisions trickle up and roll up into thousands of dollars of savings for your company. So out in the talent pool, there's a wide range of performance, and what we do is we help you rate them right at the very first step. And understand where each individual in your applicant flow falls within that range of performance. And as you'll see here, everyone falls on a 5-star rating. 3, 4s, and 5 stars represent the top half of the candidate pool. 1 stars represent that about bottom 3 out of 10 folks. And those are the folks that you can picture in your mind's eye are the ones who are just really going to cause havoc on your logistics. They're going to be the ones who are calling out, having issues with dispatch, having issues with law enforcement, who might not be fully completing their pre-trip inspections because they're not leaving with enough time, or they just simply don't want to do it. Those are the folks who might be really great in a completely different field, but are not going to be cut out for a role with your company. And so we would really, really encourage all of our clients as we come up on board with them is to really come up with a plan of just to start out, avoiding some of those 1 stars, avoiding the big headaches, and focusing on the 2, 3s, 4s, and 5s. And what that's going to look like over time is on the left, you'll see the current makeup of nearly every trucking company out there. There's a really good group. Half the drivers in your fleet, you can probably picture them, are great. They've been there for a couple of years. They're doing their job. They're really excelling. And then there's this bottom third in a lot of trucking companies, which is turning over multiple times a year, that are having to be replaced within 30, 60, 90 days. And that churn is really what's dragging down so much of the potential profitability of a lot of our fleet partners when we first start working with them. But over time, as you start to phase out some of those 1 stars and really focus on hiring some of those 3, 4s, and 5s, really high performing individuals, your safety incidents are going to go down and your profitability is going to soar up, which we're extremely excited about. So with that, we're going to jump right into some case studies. Now, you may have seen Paper Transport. They've been featured quite a bit recently in CCJ as a CCJ Innovator of the Year for 2020, as well as in FreightWaves articles, things like that, which we'll show you. And they're really a great example of a carrier who started off with about 750 drivers a couple of years ago when they started working up with us. They're now up to just under 1,000. And the amazing outcomes that they've been having have just been kind of profiled across a number of publications in the industry. We're really proud of them. And this quote is a little bit tongue in cheek, but it really is something that we want to include here, because I think Jeff, who's the president over at Paper Transport, really feels like he found something special with JOBehaviors that 2 or 3 years ago felt like no one else was considering. And his partnership and his willingness to get on the phone and talk to folks like you who might be curious about this and give them a completely unvarnished opinion. We're just really proud of that. So with that, want to take a look at, first up, what does it mean when especially because we know that there's so many carriers out there who might be not super thrilled with the quality of candidates who are coming straight out of driver school. They might be taking driver training in-house. And so just the very first case study we want to hit on here to show the validity of our program actually comes out of a training program that was funded by the federal government in the state of Arkansas after a national natural disaster. The Department of Labor wanted to come together and help folks get back on their feet. And so for anyone who was interested, they would actually commit to provide their CDL training and invest heavily. So each one of the folks that went through this program received essentially over $10,000 of government grants and funding to complete their training. And at that time, they didn't want to turn anyone away who was interested. So they they brought on for training every single person who applied, but they tested every single one of them. And what you see here is that the folks that JOBehaviors would have recommended not be hired, which is the 1-star candidates, only 16% of them, 28 out of 178 candidates, actually went on to complete the training and graduate and earn their CDL, as opposed to the folks who we would have recommended any of your carriers to pursue had a 93% graduation rate. And I think that this just really speaks volumes to the fact that folks who bring the behaviors to the table, they excel in training scenarios, and that training is an investment of your time and your energy to bring them up to speed is so much more valuable when you're doing it on a highly concentrated group of top performers. And letting the folks who might be better off in a different career, the 1-stars kind of go in a different direction. So over here, we actually have on the other side of the Predictive business, we work with a number of FedEx contractors on the delivery driver side. And we know that's obviously there's some different challenges in that industry versus the long haul trucking, but some of the core tenets we just wanted to put in front of you because some of those truths hold true across all aspects of the trucking industry. So Ron Wilmy, who's the president of the company, he actually built his fleet from the ground up using only JOBehaviors hires. And he has folks who are coming up to him at his distribution center asking him every week, how is he hiring such good folks? And he's actually started to make recommendation to his competitors which has been pretty fantastic. But some things that I think are really important, if your company has any kind of training program or training time frame in the beginning of hire, you want that you want the maximum value to come back from that. And he's seeing 100% of the folks that he's hiring are completing a 2-week training program. A lot of times that we have, when we're talking with new carriers on the heavy trucking side, we're hearing stories where of no-shows, folks who go all the way through the orientation process and then don't show up on the first day of work, or do not complete the first couple weeks of training. And we want to help you absolutely sidestep that by hiring the best folks right off the bat. And on the safety side, something that we're really proud of is that he's, actually now approaching two years on the road from when this was originally shared with us. And he's reporting 1 preventable accident and absolutely 0 workplace industry injuries, which is really impressive for that, for those folks, especially when they're getting in and out of the truck all day, carrying heavy boxes, things like that. To have folks who are just bringing a safety behavior to the table and it's paying off in a big way is really exciting to see. So on the retention front, which again, we know is very tied to safety and performance, here's Wes, who's the VP of operations over at Paper Transport. He's sitting down with FreightWaves in a video interview. And what's really cool about Wes is he's actually someone who was a little bit skeptical of our program, to be completely honest, right in the beginning. And to see him have a complete 180 and actually become one of our biggest apostles in the market has been really exciting. And he's someone that you could speak with about his experience, but he's just seen a dramatic improvement in the quality of folks who are coming through that organization. He's seen turnover, which used to be the biggest headache that Paper Transport had, is dropped nearly in half. And he's a great resource for anyone on this call who wants a completely kind of unvarnished opinion on what this looks like from an operations perspective. He can give you his take for sure. And over on the safety side of the equation, so within the first year of adopting JOBehaviors, Paper Transport also had their best safety year on record, which is a pretty huge win and something that we're extremely excited about. And they attribute it completely to sidestepping, exactly as we said before, just sidestepping those 1-star individuals who applied and just really focusing their recruiting results on the folks in the top half who are just bringing those core safety behaviors to the job. They're bringing that character, they're bringing their behaviors to the job, and the training is sticking because of the great selection that they've made. And so at a very kind of high level, they're reporting 2 to 3 times longer tenure, which we know it just creates a virtuous cycle throughout the organization. When they're dealing with less turnover headaches, they can really focus on the best customer experience, the best driver experience, and focus on the aspects of their business that are allowing them to grow as opposed to just churning and trying to keep capacity flat. They're going to be, they should have the data coming through from 2020 soon, but 2019, as we mentioned, was their best safety year on record, and they were on track to do even better in 2020. And this is what's really cool about this is they're now actually focusing tremendous efforts on hiring new Cdl graduates. So which previously was not a candidate of driver that they were super interested in pursuing. They're now doubling down their efforts because they're seeing that when they screen those folks right out of their driver school with the JOBehaviors assessment, they can find folks who are performing just as well as their industry veterans, their most dependent, trustworthy drivers. And again, to kind of tie back to that point that a lot of folks think might have the conception that a screening tool is going to hamper your ability to grow, their numbers speak for themselves. And we can help you do the exact same thing that they're doing, which is growing your company with high profitable, better drivers, and on your journey to growth, wherever that may be. So finally, just want to kind of end on this note, which is kind of a summation from Jeff, who's the president over there, who just says that at the end of the day, the drivers that you hire control all the costs in your business, from pay to fuel, miles, maintenance, and even to insurance, like we're talking about right now. And so when you hire great drivers, he says everything in your business gets better. And with us, with our job behavior system, consistently hiring great drivers every time is this new normal. So it's just been a humongous paradigm shift. So with that, would love to turn it over to any of you, to Amit and to the team. If we want to have a Q&A, myself, Dylan, who's your head of partnerships here at JOBehaviors, as well as Mark, who's the founder and CEO, are here to take your questions. We're excited to hear from you.
Thank you, Dylan. We'll get to the questions in a few minutes, and I know there are a few questions on that. Let me just quickly show everybody how do we navigate to the Predictive marketplace. So whether you're a client, if you should have access to this. We have sent out numerous email campaigns with the link. But if somebody has questions, reach out to your broker partner, and they will be able to guide you how to get to the Protective Insurance Marketplace. But once you are at the homepage of the Protective Marketplace, you have all the categories of safety solutions available to you in this left pane, if you will. You can look at all the different types of solutions in the various categories. However, for today's sake, we will go to the HR solutions, which is where the job behaviors solution card is. So you navigate to the category you want, you click on the solution card, and basically you'll find all the information about job behaviors on the solution card. There is a description of what they offer. There's also a multimedia carousel where you can browse through and get snapshots of how the solution works, features and benefits, who is the right target audience. And as you can see, they serve all fleet classes and all fleet sizes. So they don't have any restrictions from that point of view. And then there are some white papers that you can download from the resource section in order to get better educated about how this program works. Before I migrate off of this, I just want to direct your attention to, once you choose to engage, if you have any questions, if you want to find out more about the solution, the way to do that is by clicking on the request info button. It asks you to fill out few basic things about the company, and you can put your questions in here under the notes section, if you will, and hit send. As soon as you do, Job Behaviors will get notified that you're interested in further engaging them, and so they will reach out to you based on the information you provide. Now, if you want to quickly understand what kind of business model they have, so they have various business models. One is a subscription-based, where they offer unlimited assessments that they charge on a per monthly basis for that. And the other is, if you want to just buy a package of assessments, they can offer you that as well. So I'll let them talk to you individually once you submit your request info form about it. But one interesting thing that they're offering to everybody on the call today is first 5 assessments will be free if you reach out to them through this request info process, if you will. So I just wanted to show you that before we go to the questions. Now, I know there were a few questions, so let's go to the chat. And the first question that I saw was about, how do you do the scoring, if you will? So you said the 5-star scoring of 1 through 5. So could you shed some light as to how you go about it? Is it more, I think the word was used, factual, but I guess they want to understand if it's more quantitative or qualitative, subjective or objective.
Yeah, and I appreciate the question. It's a great question. So those star ratings are based on, as we said, nearly 500,000 folks who've actually taken the assessment. And so their scores are put on a range of 1 to 5 stars. So the 1 stars are just statistically the folks whose answers fall in the bottom 1/3 of everyone who's ever completed the assessment. So it's you could think of it as kind of being graded on a curve. So basically the 1 stars are kind of the bottom 1/3 of all applicants, whereas the 3, 4s, and 5s represent the top half. The 5 stars you could think of as kind of like the SEAL Team 6. They're the top 10-15%. They're really the folks who are just going to go above and beyond just the baseline Call of Duty to really just be extremely dependable and go, as we said, take the initiative to get things done. But everything essentially, yes, is kind of graded on a curve, and that's where those star ratings come from.
So Dylan, as you had explained, you guys have done assessments of over 500,000 drivers over time. So I would imagine that the quantitative selection of where the answers get classified is based on your deep experience of the pool of assessments you have done over time. Would that be a fair?
That's a great question, and I think it's something that's important to distinguish. So actually, we personally at JOBehaviors aren't actually the ones who come up with the answers. These answers actually all come out of a job analysis that we conduct with proven top performers in a job. So in the case of the long haul trucking assessment, it was done with a focus group of 10 industry recognized veterans, award winners, million mile driver folks, who helped us come up with what makes them so special and what makes them stand out. And then what we do at JOBehaviors is take that information and put it into an assessment form and make it gradable, sortable, et cetera. But all the answers, and it's a great point of clarification, are completely objective based on actual top performers, not what we think actually.
As far as the webinar is concerned, we will be posting the webinar in the JOBehaviors when you go to the solution card at the bottom of the card where I showed you the resource section. So we will be posting the webinar. So all the slides and the entire webinar will be for you at your leisure to be able to go and consult. So that answers that question. And then I believe the last question from Annette was, what about driver qualification documentation? You get the same info from those documents, including former employer information?
Yeah, it's a fair question. So and we can get in the appendix to this deck, which you'll have a chance to explore, you'll see the actual kind of step-by-step flow. But at the first screen that an applicant would sign into as they're about to complete the assessment is where we can actually capture some of those minimum qualifications. So we have a drop-down menu to say, do they have their CDL or not? Do they have a certain number of years of experience? Whatever it is that your carrier needs to check the box on and qualify up front, we can help you capture that information right up front. But as soon as they complete the assessment, you'll get the scores immediately, and then they would then fill out whatever your traditional kind of application process where they can upload those documents and things like that.
Great. One other question was, do you offer continuous monitoring?
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious. I'd love a little more clarification around exactly what that.
I guess what the question would be ongoing monitoring. So you do the pre-employment assessment. Are there other assessments that can be offered once a driver is hired and for the ongoing part of their employment?
Gotcha. Okay, so at this point in time, the solutions that we have on that front would be a structured interview as well as a performance review, which is all ties back to the behaviors and are they meeting the behaviors of high performance individuals. But typically, what we like to do is work with partners who many of them have very sophisticated kind of ongoing data partnerships. So metrics that they're seeing from in the cab, time on the road, all those really nitty gritty details. And we like to kind of do a match with them so they can see over time how those 5 stars individuals are just exceeding expectations across all the metrics that they're currently monitoring.
The other question we have is the same driver, since you have conducted over 500,000 assessments, the same driver may be going to another company in the future. Do you share the past assessment for that particular driver with the new company and give them sort of a trend analysis, or you just limit it to the new assessment for the company?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's definitely something that is is something we've considered and something that is potentially in the roadmap. At this time, the way we work is individually on a company by company basis. So we would help plug into that new potential company's hiring apparatus, so that they would take the assessment again as part of that application process. But we do have a very, very high test to retest ratio. You really don't ever see major shifts of more than 1 or 2 stars as people take this. Even over time, folks who are 1 star take the test again, 6 months later, they're going to be a 1 star again. You might sometimes see a 4 go to a 5, but you really don't see a wide range of scores.
Thank you, Dylan. So I just want to remind everybody, if you look at your chat box, there is the marketplace link in there. It's simply marketplace.protectiveinsurance.com. So it's easy to remember, but you should be able to also copy paste that from the chat box before we disconnect. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining the webinar today. Thank you, Dylan and Mark, for presenting your thoughts and your solution to the clients and broker partners for Protective Insurance. This is Roadz, and we will be posting this webinar for you to look at by the end of the day. Thank you for joining, and have a great day.